Yes, a warm welcome for everybody tuning in, for the people here live, also for the people at home watching, but also for the people at home watching in a later moment online. A warm welcome to Alternatives from the Unexpected as part of GLUE. And GLUE is a 4 days design route that will happen in September, from the 18th to the 21st. They organize a 4 days design route for Amsterdam designers, but also for their collaborators, their partners, their clients, for their colleagues, for the main public. And as part of this beautiful program that supports the creative community of Amsterdam, they also invited 5 external curators to let us find out about all the hidden gems that we do not know, who are not that familiar yet. We call them the sticky participants. And today we are watching the first episode of the interview lines, a series of actually conversations with these sticky participants. My name is Marcia Simon. I'm your host for this first episode. And today we will talk to Nora Taher, Kurina Sohn, Fleur Merjenburgh. But we will start with a visual artist whose work challenges perceptions of beauty and identity, weaving together photography, drawings, and wearable art, all made from synthetic hair. Please, a pleasant warm welcome for Fleur Ouwerkerk. Fleur, welcome here. Now, you are the most experienced one here at the table. But let's not go back to your graduation back in 2011. Maybe you can take us back to the first moment that you actually thought, hair is my material. I have enough there to spend a decade of design work there.
Yeah. Well, it actually started initially with I like to express myself through my hairstyles and switching it up every now and then. And at a certain point, I really wanted to go with a buzz cut, like super short. And I thought, like, this is my own process of experiencing how that goes. And then I never would have expected other people to give so much response or reactions to that.
Because what is a butt cut?
A buzz cut. So it's a buzz cut, like, with a... I cannot come up with a word, of course, now. But so it's like this, actually. Yeah. Super short. There's some hair, but...
It's not totally bold?
Exactly, yeah.
So you can still see the material?
Yeah, you can still see some hair, but you don't have all the information. Okay. And, well, what I've really learned with going with that hairstyle was how we still connect the beauty of a woman to having long hair. And if you take that away, there's, interesting things happening. People, well, the Dutch are, of course, quite direct in their curiosity. So people would ask questions about health, if it's a deliberate choice, or they couldn't really understand that, why I would choose to go with very short hair and why I would consider that as something beautiful.
Okay, so actually, while you were going almost bold, it actually unlocked a whole research area.
Yeah, because at least... without exaggeration, like 10 times a day, people would ask questions or give comments about it. So as at that time, still in art school, doing fine art, I needed to do something with that. It was not just, okay, I can just ignore this or it's a personal process. Because it's a personal process and I having all these encounters, I felt like, this I need to dive into this a little bit more. Yeah.
So it gave you enough food for thought.
For sure.
Apparently, it also gave you enough food to experiment with the material itself. How come you choose directly the material?
Well, for me, it's important that when you see my work, that you think of hair. I do deliberately choose synthetic hair because if it's human hair, for example, if we buy human hair, we don't always know the heritage. It could be from sacrifice, from involuntary reasons as well. And spiritual-wise, I also feel like it already belongs to somebody. I don't want to just take that for the aesthetic reasons that I use it for. I think at least the choice of synthetic hair was made in that sense. Yeah.
And do you, I mean, now we're sitting here as part of Glue, a program that's being organized also for the people that are not necessarily designers or artists. You really call yourself an artist, right? Not a designer.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I do. Yeah, I do. So some of the pieces which you can see on the photos as well is wearable pieces. Yeah. But also that I would not call that fashion. For me, there is something in between, or I consider it more art than fashion.
Yeah. And was it also something you very deliberately choose? So you really knew, okay, I'm going to be an artist, not a designer?
No, not well, I think that was just organically. I feel an artist and not necessarily a designer. I don't know. It's my idea on that title. Maybe I do. Next to working as an artist, I've always worked in fashion. It's a big love and a fascination as well. And for years, I thought like the two are very separate. Yeah. Even though I was making some wearable pieces, but I even always felt like excusing myself for, I also have a job beside doing my art. But right now, I completely am in a different phase. I'm embracing that, and for me, it gives me the option to do what I want to do with my art, gives me the freedom to do what I want in my art because I have a certain financial stability from the other job as well. And it's in fashion, something I like. And then, once I saw like the two are a big part of what I do, two big interests and necessities as well. And I felt like, well, they can go hand in hand. They don't have to be two separate things. Actually, the one influences the other as well. So I feel like it's all part of what I do. Yeah.
Let's later elaborate a little bit on this involvement of you, indeed, first being an artist, making these beautiful portraits, and then later on this becoming more wearable pieces of art. Yeah. But before we do that, this last decade, you've been investigating hair, synthetic hair, but also the definition of identity, also both for all genders there. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe give us an example of what you've learned so far working with this material in such a specific area?
It's interesting to know, once you mention to people that you work with hair, or first maybe if you hear about hair, you can have a certain negative connotation maybe, or you're like, oh, hair is gross or scary or whatever.
It's human, it's natural,
maybe
it's material.
When they know it's synthetic, it's also different, but everybody has a hair story, I would say. And for me, the connection between identity and exterior, that's what intrigues me. And I would always be able to create work on that. But I feel like just as a person, and the hair is just a given, or it's not. And then with the work that I do, I want everybody to be able to enjoy hair in that sense. So you don't have, if you don't have it on your head, you can still wear it or experience it in a different way. Yeah.
And could you imagine back when you had that first cut that you really have a decade to experiment with the material and to really show people what all the opportunities is to work with just this small section?
In the beginning, I don't think I could have foreseen that, but I did had a buzz cut for 10 years. Like, it's not just a one moment thing. I kept it for 10 years. So I kept having certain encounters, also really nice ones. It's not that it's born from negativity or something, but I would before call it like a fascination. At the moment, I would call it an obsession.
Obsession.
Yeah. I think it covers it a bit better. Yeah.
So for me, fascination to obsession.
It's an obsession. Yeah.
Continuous obsession still to be?
For sure. Yeah. I feel like I can go on with this for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then what is the point? And now it's your obsession.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit obsessed with my hair, but that's more of a problem. But because what if I lose it? For me, it's really important. If I don't have this cut, then who am I? Actually, it's really
but that's the thing. So you connect your identity to that hair. So the importance you provide a certain importance to that structure, to that texture, to that thing.
But is this really honestly true for a lot of people? What in your experience?
Well, I think. Subconsciously, maybe. I don't think if maybe also my work is a tool for you to think of your own hair or of what you feel about the subject hair, or I don't think it's necessarily something you have your own fascination about, but my work could trigger like thinking about how the importance of hair.
Could you maybe take us to a moment where people actually really experienced one of your projects, maybe more wearable, could also be just to see a portrait. What could happen to somebody? What could open?
Yeah, there was one moment. As I mentioned, that I have a job besides my art practice.
Yep.
It's also a store where there's art and design and fashion, and it was really, for me, it was really special because it was the first store that I would sell my earrings. So I also make wearable art earrings with hair, and I had like the nice presentation, and there were a guest in the store, and they were looking to a collection next to mine. And then the man was there, and he was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "Should I mention that it's mine, or is that weird?" I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I was so he wanted to see it, and I was like, "Well, these are actually mine." And he was like super intrigued, and I got to tell a bit more about them. And he was like, I would get a piercing because I want to wear this. And then literally 2 weeks after, he came to the store showing that he got his ear pierced so that he's able to wear the earring. It was like super special. Like, wow. Yeah.
And what happens? What do you feel then?
Yeah, I feel like I want to do this, and I know there's people that want to wear it, but like to have such a direct one-on-one where, it's for me, it's something that somebody would take to get their ear pierced to be able to wear that. That's special. Yeah.
And he came back.
Yeah. He came to get it because he got his ear pierced. Yeah.
Did you also talk to his partner about it?
No, because then after that he came to show he was by himself. So
okay.
No. But I felt like even when we just had the first conversation, I felt like, this is him. It was a good match. Yeah.
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 Maybe also take us to that moment that indeed, first you were quite known for these beautiful portraits. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on how that happened? Were there photographers that really wanted to work with you? How did you get to the making of these beautiful portraits?
Well, so this, for the photos that you see now, I collaborated with a photographer because studio photography is not really my thing.
Yeah.
But I do mixed media portraits, combination of techniques. And there I always did the photography myself and then added a layer or scratched away a layer, cut out a piece or whatever I felt the work needed. But then at a certain point I felt like when I had some of the wearable pieces, which are usually hand woven with synthetic hair, the reactions I would get to those pieces were, completely different. And I felt like, I want to explore this. I want to explore this a bit more. I feel like I'm standing out a little bit more with the wearable art. So I made sure that was visible. And then,
And then what happened?
Yeah, now I have also like dancers, other creative stylists, bringing the pieces to life. And that's my dream. Like I can make them and I can have a vision of, I feel like I need to make them, but they're wearable pieces. So the best for me is if they're worn.
Yeah.
So it's working now.
Yeah. So you went from fascination to obsession, actually making these objects for a still moment.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you realized, hey man, maybe some other people can also use this.
Yeah,
to
it happens
bring them
quite
to
organically.
different contexts.
Yeah.
And then also bring them to a store where people can buy them and actually wear them.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice involvement.
Yeah, because now it's traveling all over the world. That's a dream, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it traveling over the whole world?
Yeah. I have a regular customer in Japan. I have people from LA, from all over. It's really nice.
Talking about dreams coming true, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, very nice to hear. And today we're talking about alternatives from the unexpected. We're living in quite a strange era. I don't know if everybody feels that also back home, but at least me, I feel that. We've been talking about it also together. What if your work could make a change? And I don't mean to talk about only climate or to talk about the geopolitical landscape we are now in. Just a change in the world, maybe societal, maybe social. What could your work contribute to?
Yeah, I think maybe in self-expression or the challenging somebody in that, like where they can feel like they can. I think it's more small. I think it's not a big change, but more personal changes, which can also be big as well, but more personal maybe.
Well, let's go to the profession of the designer. What if we close our eyes and we see the world in 10 years and we imagine your work? Is there something changed in the street view? Did something change in our personalities? What is the change we are looking at?
Well, maybe the perception of looking at hair, or the possibilities of hair, the self-expression. I don't think my pieces are for everyone, and that's okay. You know, that the people that enjoy it will always enjoy it, and there will always be those people. So if you will see it somewhere, that will be nice. I don't need everybody to wear it. It's okay. I don't expect that to happen in the future either.
It's not your ambition to become a mainstream,
no,
very famous artist.
Famous, yes.
Oh, okay.
Mainstream, not necessarily. Yeah.
Famous via Lady Gaga wearing pieces.
If the right artist, for sure. Yeah. Not sure if it's Gaga, but yeah.
Well, talking about, pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see more Janelle Monáe or now Doechii. Yeah.
Okay, well, later on we'll come back to you because we're going to have a joint conversation. But please do think about this image of that you hope will change from now to maybe 10 years or so. Keep that on mind. Thank you very much, Fleur. Talking about pushing boundaries. Now a boundary-pushing artist and graphic designer, blending Dutch, Egyptian heritage, storytelling and material exploration to foster cross-cultural dialogue. Feel welcomed, Nora Taher. Please, a warm welcome also for Nora. We've been talking about hair, and now we dive into a totally different subject, but it is connected to cultural cross-cultural dialogue.
Yeah.
It could mean big words, but in your own words, what does that mean? What are you exploring?
Cross-cultural dialogue to me means, well, to really explain it, I will have to explain why we need it, I think. Because of, well, diving into deep subjects now, but because of colonization, war, immigration, all these things, the Western world and all the other worlds, have collapsed. And we are now living in a world where a lot of cultures are in the same spaces, or should be in the same spaces because we're living closely with each other. And I think this is why we need to foster cross-cultural dialogue. All these different cultures, they have their own language, not only a language that we speak, a vocal language, but also a visual language. And we need to find ways to combine those and to let those both be heard, and not one to be heard more than the other or to have authority over the other. So that's kind of what I'm researching. So that's what cross-cultural dialogue, I think, means to me.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you very much. Indeed, in these times, we were talking about fascination becoming an obsession. I can imagine you having this Egyptian and Dutch culture in you, that you actually indeed are the right person to address these kinds of topics, especially if you've just, studied as a designer and you have certain ambition. In what way does, design like this actually contribute to these big topics?
Well, I think we all have, well, maybe not everyone, but I think a lot of people have political bodies. What that means is that maybe you're in a space that's not necessarily designed for people like you or people like you in mind, which per definition makes you a political body because it's resistance if you are in a space that's not designed for you. And I think we need to redesign a lot of spaces. And I'm not only talking about physical spaces, but I'm talking also about infrastructure. I'm talking about all the design around us. I'm even talking about supermarkets, our streets, talking about a lot of institutions. And I think...
So you're talking about spaces in a very general
Yeah.
sense of that word.
Yes.
So you mean the spaces we are in, whether we are at home, whether we are in a classroom, whether we are in a supermarket, in a car, together, alone, maybe in bigger spaces together. But we're looking at your work. Could you maybe explain to us what we are looking at? What is the end result of what you are working on, for example, in this project?
So this is Unceded Borders. This is one of my latest works. And I think at this stage, I was really researching what identity specifically means and our learned behaviors. So we've all learned to sit on a chair, because if you see a chair, you're like, oh, yeah, well, I can sit on that.
Well, we're all sitting down right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Probably people at home, it's what we do almost with all of our hours.
Yes. And if you see a table, you usually put something on it because that's our learned behavior. And I really wanted to research what it means if we unlearn our behavior and how that relates to our identity also in these spaces that we've talked about. Because the learned behaviors are also sometimes cultural. And so this is a chair and a table where you cannot sit on or put anything on. And it's also extremely big. The chair is 3 meters high. You can't really see that in the picture, but it's a very big installation. And it has a lot of different topics going on there, but I wanted to explore what home meant. So also that's why these two specific shapes. And I wanted to, explore home in the form of my own culture, so Egyptian, but also Dutch. And what does that mean? And I work a lot in my practice with patterns and the meaning of patterns. So that's also the visual language that I was talking about.
Maybe also talk about, because it's
can talk about it for hours.
Works like this often need several examples to really understand what you are working on. So maybe also explain to us what we're looking at here.
For sure. So this is when they walk, their feet cross tails. This was actually my graduation work, which then got into Museum Arnhem. So
when did you graduate and where?
I graduated from Artes Graphic Design in, I think, 2023. I think you know it better than I do. Yeah,
2023.
Yes. So this is actually, it's really started from my dad's story. So he immigrated from Egypt to the Netherlands. And, this is my studio, where I'm working on my patterns, But he immigrated from the Netherlands, and, it's a very personal story. When he came to Amsterdam, there was no... There was no internet, no social media, no smartphones, and he didn't speak the language, or he couldn't read the language as well. So he always used to walk besides the tram tracks, Amsterdam, so he could find his way home, because he was trying to find work. So he explored the whole city walking like that. And I found that very poetic. And I asked him to walk these tracks with me again, because he never really told me much about his story. And I think people that have parents who immigrated to the Netherlands, they will maybe know, oftentimes parents don't really share because there's either a lot of pain, sometimes there's even shame. In my opinion, there really doesn't need to be, because I think it's something to be very proud of. But this was really a moment for us to share stories and kind of heal together and also bond. And I saw this in so many families that they didn't really share stories, and which then again, the kids didn't really know where they came from, because they don't really know their parents' story. And I found this very important. So
it's very beautiful, right? How you have a personal fascination.
Yeah.
In your case, it becomes an obsession, and in your case, you also feel, okay, this is something that is not only for me. This is happening in more families, and this matters actually.
Exactly.
So then, what happened? What did you do with it?
So I really wanted to make a space, basically, where not only me and my family could heal and share stories, but where others could do the same. So I created an installation with all the carpets. The carpets I designed, they all have symbols and meanings related to either my own personal family history, but also of others that have shared their stories with me. The kids with their parents, both. Some carpets even have written stories of them on the carpets as well. So it's a visual experience, I would say. I really wanted them also to walk on it together, whether in silence or speaking and telling each other the stories.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So it's already of value between you and your father within your family.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you add value to the people around you, also with the same background maybe. But then also the visitor enters that maybe doesn't have the same background.
Yeah.
How do these people actually experience your work?
Yeah, so that was very interesting indeed. That's a great question, because I really wanted the work to be in places where people with these stories are not always seen or even dare to enter. I had both people with these stories and people that were interested, I would say. And that was also very valuable because people start to share with each other and people come together and they see each other's pain, they see each other's joy, and they become familiar. And I think that's what cross-cultural dialogue needs to do, is to come together and find a way to tell a new story together. And you can only do that once you know the other's his story. I think that is what happened.
I don't know about everybody here, but I really feel the relevance also for the era we are in right now. And not only different cultures, against each other. Also, within one culture, you have different, areas where people are clashing at the moment. And looking at the United States, also looking at the Netherlands right here. What if you think about your work making a change, having an effect on society?
Yeah.
What could it be?
So, I understand the need for polarization. I also understand the need to work against polarization, right? I understand both. And I think to come together, you really first need to understand each other. And I think that's why polarization right now is happening, because a lot of people do not feel heard or understood.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want my work to do that for people. I want people to feel seen. I want them to be in a place or look at something and see, like, this is for me. I matter. I am just as important as everybody around me. And I can achieve just as much as everybody around me. I want people to feel that when they look at my work. I want them to talk to each other about their stories, about what matters to them, about what hurts them, and about what makes them happy. And I don't want that to just be about the good weather. I want that to be about what's really inside of them and what has shaped them. And I think if we could all really do that for each other, we would live in a very different world. So
beautiful. Thank you for at least trying. I mean, I think it's important. What I also think is important in your work is that you collaborate.
Yes.
With all kinds of different disciplines, maybe not only your own cultural heritage, but also some different ones. If you could dream out loud and you think of one collaborator you could work with in the near future, who would it be? What would it be?
Well, one of the artist that I've always really looked up to. She's very old right now. She's 73, I think. It's Trinity Minha. Don't know if anybody knows her, but she's a filmmaker, French-Vietnamese filmmaker. And she has really inspired so much of my work. Maybe someone knows this quote of hers, but she used to say that when she was doing a documentary, for example, in Senegal, it's one of her famous works, she did it, she filmed she was nearby them, and the work was not about them. She was only just observing. She didn't have an opinion. She didn't make any assumptions. And I think most importantly is that she doesn't assume a hierarchy. So she doesn't see herself above the people that she photographs or in her case, films. Yeah. So she doesn't appropriate the people she films. She literally just shows their worlds. And that's very hard to do, actually, when you are documenting other people's story or even just when you photograph their faces. You're almost always appropriating, whether it's with consent or not.
What do you think she does that she makes other people in front of their lens actually feel in that level?
She doesn't do anything. She is just there, and she just captures it, and she lets them be whoever they are, and she doesn't try to shape it in any form. And she knows very well who she is in that position, and she's really just somebody nearby.
And in what way does that contribute to the quality of the storytelling, you believe?
It's the realest form of storytelling that you can do, I think. So
close to us humans.
Close, yeah. And I mean, she made films in the times where were a lot of anthropological people going to Africa and be like, oh, look at these people, or or Asia, and be like, wow, look at this, and I found this, and that's insane to me personally. I hope to many people, and she was not like that. She was there as a guest, and they allowed her in their space, and she has a lot of respect. And I think that is so important when you tell other people's story. And I think a lot of people still today can learn from that.
Yeah. It would be interesting. You have the Dutch, you have the Egyptian cultures, you have
French,
Vietnamese, you have French, and you have all the luggage of all the people she's already been interviewing. So there'll be a lot of cultures already there. Thank you very much so far.
Thank you.
Time flies, actually. So it's time for a poetic, multidisciplinary designer exploring the unknown through sculptural objects and immersive installations that challenge our understanding. A warm welcome also for Kurina, Sohn. We're talking here together. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling quite good. I'm quite intrigued by all the stories.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we're talking about beautiful influences, actually, of the things you do and why you work, actually, as a designer. So maybe in your case, we need a bit of an explanation if you make these immersive installations. Could you maybe explain with one installation the core of your work?
The project that I wanted to talk about is Deepest Unknown, which is shown on the screen right now.
Deepest Unknown?
Deepest Unknown. Because I'm quite fascinated with the idea of unknown and the limits of what we could know. And deep sea seemed so far in reach that started to make sense that I do a full dive into the idea. And in this particular work, I was also working with AI and imagine how AI would experience nature, because for them, the way they understand nature or the deep sea or the creature that lives there would be so different from our understanding or how we connect.
What is the difference then, if you really compare us one-on-one?
For instance, all these images that AI gets fed is with this perfected image of this nature creatures. So it's not them in movement, but it is a capture in the perfect lighting in a very compositional way. And that's the type of nature that they get as a input, and then they generate their own. So here I'm using AI's perspective to understand, and it happened to become a VR 360 film at the end of it. You probably would be able to see the slides. Yeah, there. So
this is the installation.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're just looking at an image that you created together with AI. Am I correct?
And a whole CGI team and soundscape team.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you bring it into an installation like this.
Yeah. And here, two participants get to witness it and really be into this immersive experience. Okay. And then the visitor around could also see them and see what they're seeing. So there are multiple levels of seeing what's happening.
Now, take us to a visitor right there.
Yeah.
Do they enter the space knowing what they will see? Hopefully, they've did a little bit of research. Then they enter the space. Do they sit down, relax, and enjoy? Or are they... What happens to them?
I think first they're really just trying to navigate themselves in the space, because you submerge and then you go through deep sea caves and witness two different type of creatures and also different sea floors. So they're trying to orient, and then they become sort of relaxed and just to be this observer.
So actually it feels like as if you bring them the experience of the AI, being fed with all these images and all these details. And then you actually, as if you give AI the time and space to relax and to, try to progress, actually process what they've just been seeing. And then what do they see?
What do they see?
Yeah, the visitors, they sit down and then what do they see?
They see a whole generated deep sea with a story that was co-written by me and also AI. And they hear the soundscape of the deep sea. And yeah, they really try. They could also then imagine how it would be also to be in the deep sea.
And is this also a project we will see in September at Glue, or will we see a new project?
I'm hoping to produce a new project.
Yeah. You got me very curious. Is it on show right now somewhere?
No, at the moment, not. But it was shown at the Z33 in Belgium and also V2 in Rotterdam. And last October, it was also in Shenzhen. So it went on a little tour.
Talking about different cultural backgrounds, many people already experienced this installation. Can you maybe give us an example of how people responded?
There was a little Dutch kid experiencing this, and my project is in English, so he didn't really probably didn't understand the full dialogue that's happening in the film, but he came out with this eye that was glowing and full of wonder. And when I was showing in China, like a researcher and a engineer saw this, and he just came out and just looked at me and asked, "How did you do it?" Technically, there's also a lot of feedback about technical or even biologists asking how the process was. So I get to engage in multiple conversation with multiple type of disciplines, and that's the joy that I have for the projects that I create.
Is that also the purpose you feel you have as a designer, an artist?
I graduated 5 years ago, and I think now I actually understand what I actually like. And it is in between art and science, because science also gives us new knowledge and also show us the limitation of what we know of. So with this combination of art and design, also, I think it's quite fascinating combination.
Yeah.
So I do see a future in this more.
We're going to end our conversation with exactly this area, but can we? I mean, we just took a deep dive right into the core of your work. Where do you start with a huge project like that?
It becomes very organic at one point. I didn't intend this to be a VR project with CGI team and soundscape team and all these people engaged. At the beginning, it's just started really with, I guess, my fear for water, and also I've been living abroad for 22 years now, in different continents, and I think I'm quite fascinated with something new. So I was just searching for something new and something unknown, and I just wanted to
The deep blue sea.
yeah, understand what the deepest unknown is.
And it was that. Yeah.
Yeah, my answer to that.
What was your
question
personal?
this.
What was your personal learning from this project?
Managing a big production is what I learned the most. How to communicate with different people, because if you're talking to an animator, they have a totally different questions for you, while sound person or editor for writing has a different question. So, or even when I was building and cutting carpet, like that installation itself had a different question. So just being able to communicate with different people is really what I learned the most.
Well, I see people nodding. I mean, that's part of the job, right? Most definitely, being whether the artist, whether a designer, often you have fascination, a fear, just a small starting point, and then you develop into a project that you actually need to involve other people, collaborators, technicians, and then you bring into visitors of all different kinds, and they have all these different experiences, and they bring it all home. What are you hoping that the audiences of your future projects bring home the most?
This is a really difficult question. But I think ultimately I want them to understand that we're all connected, that we are all connected. Even the deepest part of the ocean, our plastic debris goes down into the deep. It's found in the bodies of the creatures living under. And we do mining of the precious metals down there. And even before we get to them, they might already be gone from this place that we coexist. So ultimately, I just want people to understand we're all here together and we are all sharing this place, and that we are all connected one way or the other.
Yeah. Great choice that you then took water.
Yeah.
Just simple as that. Without water, no life. It's all in us, in everything that's here, right?
Exactly.
And then I wanted to ask all of you, also the people back home, also here in the audience, what if you have no limits? Just imagine. You don't have to think about budget. You don't have to think about time. You don't have to think about materials. What kind of project would you love to work on?
This is very exciting to think about.
Can you already answer that question, or you want to wait for it?
I have 2 projects that I'm working on right now, both involving brainwaves and processing of information.
Brainwaves and processing information.
Yeah, how our brains work. And one project...
The human brain or the brain in general?
Well, one research that I'm doing is with meditation, so it's involving human brain. But another project that I'm working on with a researcher in Geneva is working with animal brain and cognition. So looking at, for instance, baboon to understand how language is being made, like the evolution of language.
Great.
And he uses brain wave as a signal to understand if they process the same way we do. And if I had unlimited resources, I would love to fund more research because I have unlimited in science and also animal communication, and do a big project also regarding to these topics that I mentioned.
Beautiful. Oh, I can't wait. Let's find a way, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so far. It's time for me to introduce you to our last speaker. Somebody maybe a little bit less technical, maybe closer to what we all imagine design and art could be. You know, somebody in an atelier, in a studio, working with a material. A designer, maybe an artist, maybe an artisan, who lets intuition and material behavior lead the way, pushing the limits of techniques to discover new possibilities. Graduated in 2023 at HKU Utrecht with Merged by Gravity, a project she has been continuously working on. Can we get a very warm welcome for our last speaker, Fleur Merjenburgh. Fleur, Merged by Gravity. In one sentence, what it is about?
In one sentence, I would say it's about the natural deformation of the material of clay.
Yeah.
And in more sentences, it is...
Because it doesn't,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't transform by itself.
No,
right?
because I started out by getting fascinated about how flexible clay is when it's molded. And normally when you mold clay, then you have a finished form. Yeah. But I started playing with it with my hands and blowing into it and vacuuming it. And then at one point I thought, let's see how much it can handle. So I dropped it on the floor and it handled it. So it's super flexible. And what happened when I dropped it, it was there came this very natural deformation. And it blew up and it sagged in, which made it feel like when fired, like it was still soft. And that's what I really liked about it.
So hold on.
So,
you have all these artisans who are working with clay, with molds, and something comes out of the mold perfectly, and then they are very happy, and then you think, let's throw it on the ground.
Yeah.
Why? Why were you fascinated about that specific moment?
I don't know. I just felt like the material had something else to offer, and more shapes that I myself cannot make. So that's why I started working with the material more and understanding what it can give me instead of just pushing it in a shape that I want.
And can you maybe, just for us, also the people at home, bring us into your atelier?
Yeah.
You get it out of the mold. You stand up and
good
you throw
picture
it?
right now.
There we have it.
Yeah.
Is it literally what you do? You really drop it? What are you, 160 height? Or
Yeah, I just drop it in front of me, in front of my head.
Yeah.
And so after the research, I started making super basic shapes. So they're like very clean blocks, because that's what you can see right now. So that you can see every deformation that happens. And when I drop them, I always drop two on top of each other, so that there's not only one deformation, but they also deform each other. And I do this because when you use one shape, at one point you're gonna know almost all the deformations that are happening. But when you use two, how many I make, it doesn't matter. They're all different and they're all unique, and I can find little details that are different every time. And that's what keeps it fun for me also. So, yeah.
So in 2023, you graduated?
Yeah.
You actually graduated as a product designer?
Yes.
But this looks like, to me, it looks like an art piece.
Yeah.
Do you get that question quite often?
Sometimes, yes. And it was also something that I had to push myself to let it go, actually, to be a product designer. Because during the research of this product, I was constantly thinking, okay, how can I make it maybe into a vase or make it into a product that people can use, because that was something that was in my mind that I wanted to be. And every time when I took some steps, I had to remind myself, no, go back to what matters for you in this project, which was showing what this material can do. So I had to take steps back all the time to get a very pure result in the end.
What supported you to stay close to your own fascination, to really let your intuition collaborate with gravity and simply take this pure fascination, this pure collaboration as a starting point and to continuously work on that? What supported you?
I don't know. I feel like the working with the material, it really, it fed me in some way that I could really, just see it forming and playing with it. Made it just felt good. I don't know.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to me, it sounds like you found something, like you say, a fascination becoming an obsession,
Mm-hmm.
and then for you, it's also, I think, intriguing how you balance still letting gravity do its job.
Yeah.
How do you balance that intuition with gravity?
I have to at one point, because at the start sometimes I dropped them and I was like, okay, I'm gonna change it a little bit because you want control.
Yeah.
But once it's dropped and you want to change it, it doesn't work. It breaks instantly. So I had to, and that was a constant reminder of letting it go. And then at one point I didn't even want to try anymore because I just loved what came out of it. And yeah, that's now it's just feels very natural for me to really work with the material and not against it, and really see what it can do.
Yeah. And what is a surprising response to your work? People visiting maybe an exhibition, seeing it. What's a surprising response?
Yeah, there are very different responses, is what I like. Some people are really into the material deformation. Some people are really into how it's hard, but it looks soft. But other people are more into also the story of two pieces becoming one, which is what I personally also really like. And I had just last week someone who bought it as a 20-year marriage present.
Okay.
Because she really recognized her relationship in it. Like, there are two different things that deform each other and they mold each other into something more unique. And they get a whole shape even though you still see both of them. So that's also something what's really nice, that people can really feel that with my work.
As a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a metaphor, yeah.
Objects, personalities actually merging together into one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's beautiful. And what I find beautiful is that we are sitting here at a table. We're talking about fascination, about fear. We're talking about a cultural heritage that you bring into your work. We're talking about you really daring to choose for a very pure fascination. And I think it's very important that design has all these different sides for us in society right now. I mean, I think there are maybe some designers back home watching, also in the audience, that know that people are looking at design as a force for good, as a force for change. You know, designers being change makers. And I think in this way you also show that being as pure as you are, it still matters. But if I'd ask you, in what way could your work contribute to the creative community? What could it be?
I think it's quite a hard question for me.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I think it's about being pure and about a connection with the materials and the things around us, and that you really have to look deep and into the details, and but also keep it pure and simple sometimes, and take steps back to see what it was actually about.
For me, I saw your work back when you graduated, and you really gave me the space to look differently. So you really gave me another perspective, actually. And what I really love also is that you dare to choose to continue to work on it and to really find the deeper details in your work. So that means that you actually dare to take time. And in these times, where design is being sometimes forced into a certain direction. I really love that you also not take for granted that we need that attention in that side of our community, right? So if I'm imagining you having all the budgets you need to really do this brain research, and I imagine you giving all the time you want to continue to work on this, what can we see in the future from you?
In the future for me, I want to go, in this specific project, I want to go bigger.
Yeah.
But also I want to do the same, what I did here with different materials.
Oh, wait, bigger? Oh. You mean like gigantic?
Well, if I had all the time and materials in use,
like here?
Yes, I would
so
go
this is
gigantic.
Yeah.
First step, a little bit bigger.
Okay.
But I would also love to experiment more with other materials. And one material that I'm trying to get in touch with right now is glass. I would really love to work with glass blowers to see how I can work with this material and shape this material in a very natural way.
So if people at home are watching or here in the audience are listening and you know somebody who works with glass, please try to contact Fleur via the Glue community so that she can actually start working with glass. Fleur, thank you so far. I think it's nice to also take this moment to have a collective conversation on how we actually experience the world around us, and then what kind of, ways that designers are actually helping us to go through this weird episode we are in. Can I have a little bit of light in the audience? Also for the people back home, please just imagine that, we are experiencing this, what I like to call myself now is a geopolitical avalanche. Call it an earthquake, whatever. It feels like a natural force which is human-made, but is really uncontrollable, I think. At least that's how I feel. I feel very vulnerable. I worry sometimes. But then talking about design, it gives me hope, because there are people daring to choose topics that are quite big. Also people still working on more personal fascinations are close to us as humans. In what way, to us, is design helping us cope with this era we are in? It's a big question. But maybe somebody would like to share. Also the speakers here. How does our profession, the profession of designers, the profession of creative communities, are supporting us going through this strange era?
I think visibility is very important.
Visibility?
Yeah, for the people whose voices are taken away, for example.
Okay.
I think as a designer or an artist, sometimes you have a platform or you have the visual abilities to give power to people's voices. So I think that's something to be aware of. That's a power that we have and we hold.
Said. Thank you very much. Somebody else in the audience? Yeah, wait. Let me run to you. I have this. May I ask who you are?
I'm Ronnie Wijngaarden. I'm the author of the book called Kruisjes.
Kruisjes?
Yeah, it's a poetry book about my love history in Amsterdam. But I just wanted to say I think it's really inspiring what you're doing and the way you're speaking about it. And I did want to ask, I'm trying to set up a connective Halloween charity event this year in my neighborhood.
What kind of event?
A connective Halloween charity event.
Halloween or Halloween?
Yeah, Halloween, but an event that helps to connect people. And I was listening to what you were saying, and I just wondered, I wrote it down. Let's see.
Somebody really did homework. That's beautiful, huh? That's why we do these things, to really, get this conversation going, to really support people like you. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So the charity event is for Save the Children for Gaza. But what I wanted to ask was, you spoke about connection, and I was just wondering if you might want to talk to me about the idea of a VR game-like experience in which people get a simulation that has people experienced like a creepy bio-industry interaction, like in the sea, for example? What would it be like to be a fish that experiences a net, along with sound and all sorts of other things, but in VR? So I was wondering, would you consider something really simple like that for young people and old people in my neighborhood for the event?
Just really simple.
Really simple. I think I know somebody who could help you. Actually, a game designer that I met last week in a residency. So we could talk about this after, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. Is a beautiful example of why it matters what we do to really get this conversation going. I see it's 9 o'clock. We will continue our conversation right here, but while we continue to talk, we say goodbye to our friends, our viewers at home, and we hope to see you April 24th for the next episode of this beautiful conversation. And we're also, of course, looking forward to meet you live at Glue in September. And it's also time for me to really thank the organizations that make these kinds of conversations and also the work of the designers actually work. So a big shout out to Stimuleringsfonds and Amsterdamse Fonds voor de Kunsten, but also for Pakhuis de Zwijger for making this happening and also for making this work. So a big round of applause for those organizations. And now I would like even a bit more light for the audience, because you gave a very beautiful example. Is this mic still on? Is it still working? Yes, now it is. Okay, can we get a big round of applause for these speakers? Didn't they actually, we prepare a little bit, but then we let go and we really try to have a very natural conversation with you. So what we would love is for us to have another conversation together. And to come back to that question that I asked everybody, how are you coping with this strange era? Are there people worried? Yeah? I see here somebody nodding. I'll walk to you. Just, if you may, if you want to, please share. What is your worry at the moment?
I think we talked a bit about polarization, and I'm living in the Netherlands now for 5 years, coming from the US, and I think we are the classic example of a duality, so to say. So that is on my mind a lot these days.
And you came here to listen? Was there a specific reason that you came?
My background is in research and data analytics, and I'm trying to transition. Actually, I'm looking for a job, trying to transition into a more creative role, because I think that statistics are no longer something that is remembered, but stories are becoming more valuable, and a visual language that many people can understand. And my educational background is actually art history. And I think somewhere along the way that got lost a bit, or maybe devalued in this Anthropocene era that we're in, where everything needs to be data-driven, productivity sourced, I don't know, shareholder value, yada, yada, yada. And so I wanted to just hear people in this practice, making this their livelihood, and what their stories were.
And why now? Why are you right now, evolving into a new role? Why? Why do you think that right now you really need to, maybe combine the roles, but combine some backgrounds?
Right now? I don't know. I just turned 31. In your 30s, you sort of learn a bit from your 20s. You take a bit more time to think about, what do I really want to do in this life? And there seem to be little signals that pop up everywhere, and I think probably that's why more people than me are here, to keep your ears open for those little signals.
Can we get a big round of applause for sharing this? If I may invite you, in my work, at this very moment, we have a lot of events talking about interdisciplinary work. We talk a lot about how the importance of collaborating. And we also, at the table, we were talking about how designers have, or artists have, all these different roles, right? First, you're somebody who's just fascinated. Then you learn you can do something with it. Then you learn you need a certain technique to really master a technique. So coming from your background, we need you. Yes, really. I think it's really important that you realize, wow, I have a background and I can actually use that. So let's not forget about what you already have. Really, I think you could use her, right?
I'm very jealous of your skills. I'm really jealous of the type of mind you have to see something and to be able to organize it in such a way that makes sense to us. Yeah, I'm working with also data scientists as well. Yeah.
And Kurina, what is the challenge in working together with somebody with such a different background and such a different language? What is a challenge? How do you meet those challenges as well?
I guess the most recent challenge that I had was really talking to this evolutionary linguist who's studying animal cognition and communication through neuroscientific way. I was reading textbooks and all these things to really get to understand. And I think my challenge as a creative is to be able to digest those information and be able to give it back to the viewers. And that part isn't easy all the time, but it's it's totally necessary to be able to create something meaningful and to be in respect for the research as well. So
yeah. So when somebody like a data scientist or whatever is already very curious about the work of the designer, that's already one step forward, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to you. Who was worried? Everybody said, I'm not worried anymore. let her come to me. Yeah, who dares to say, I'm actually quite worried. I saw you here, right? You said, yeah. So let me sit next to you. You have a chair next to you. What are you worried about in these times?
Well, I think just people need to listen more. I think they are afraid to listen. So that's mainly the thing that I'm worried about.
And did you already find a way to actually cope with it yourself or to actually really contribute to this worry?
Well, I love to listen, actually. Yeah, just bringing back to the question about what we do as designers. I think it's also what Nora also said. What we can do as a designer is we have the power to visually speak to people. There are some great campaigns from back in the day that also help doing that. And I think these things also make people listen with their eyes. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So I reckon you are a designer?
I'm a designer, yeah.
So what do you do?
I'm a designer and head of design at a company here in Amsterdam. It's called Anticon. And we are more bringing experiences to... we are in the tourism section. But we bring experiences to the guests visiting our country.
Okay, well, I see maybe also a collaboration here, right here.
I already know him.
I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. What's your name again?
Alper.
Alper. Okay, I didn't know that, I think. I'm looking at the time. It's 9:10. I think we could, in a moment, also go to have a more natural conversation, maybe with a drink or something. But I want to, when I was looking at the text of this event, it stated something quite big. How designers actually work on system change, right? And it sounds big. I also was talking to you about it. Well, maybe I'm not somebody who's working on big changes. But what I really believe in, what I see in events that I'm hosting, is that we really need small steps to actually make bigger changes. And these bigger changes are happening right now. So I would actually like to take a moment to think all together what kind of small steps we personally can make to matter in this insane era we are in. So just, okay, who am I? What am I doing in my work? Whether I'm more somebody like an artisan, maybe I'm a data scientist, maybe I work in, I don't know, maybe it's just more social company, maybe I'm a policy maker, maybe I'm a researcher, maybe I'm just simply a mother raising children, maybe I'm a grandmother, maybe I'm a father, a brother. What is a small step to keep connected? Small steps from everybody. For me, in my work, actually really try to take the time and make the space to have these in-depth conversations. For people to feel, I don't know, safe enough to actually share personal stories. That's something that I've been working on. I'm also a mother. I like to raise my children feeling, daughters, female, feeling they matter and they can be who they want to be, have the hair that they want to wear, right? The clothes that they want to wear. What's the small step everybody can take? Just scream, share it.
What I liked from what Fleur...
Wait, David, let me come to you. Can we get a big round of applause for David? Because he's organizing Clue from the start.
What I liked from what Fleur showed us is that you also have to lose control to reach something. And in a way, maybe that's a metaphor of something we need more, to also let go and to trust that something good will come out of it. So for me, that was kind of symbolic, her work for that.
Thank you very much. I think that resonates with everybody, no? We've been talking about very human starting points, fascinations, fears. We all have worries. We have professions. We also have a private life. And then indeed, we are now in an era that we also need to let go because we're not in control. But if we stay true to our values, then maybe we can make a change. We can make a difference. So I want to thank you very much for listening, for coming and joining this conversation. And we really hope to have these conversations also in the future. So I hope that you will continue to come. Thank you very much and see you next time. Big round of applause for you as well. Time for drinks.